These last several years, Bitcoin has been the talk of the town. Everyone wants a piece of the action. But what benefit does P2P bring to the Bitcoin community? To start us off, what does P2P mean? And what does it bring to the table when we're talking about Bitcoin? A peer-to-peer service, also known as P2P, is a decentralized platform that allows two users to communicate directly with one another without having the need for a third party to intervene. Instead, the buyer and seller use the P2P service to trade directly with one another. Basically, it's a much more direct transaction for both clienteles. And P2P offers a lot more than just a direct transaction. Search, screening, rating, payment processing, and escrow are some of the services that P2P platform may also offer. File sharing systems such as the music sharing app Napster, which was launched way back in 1999, popularized the current peer-to-peer notion. Millions of internet users who were using Napster were able to connect, establish groups, and interact with one another as user-created search engines, virtual supercomputers, and file systems. That this is all because of the peer-to-peer service. This network configuration varies from the client-server approach, which involves communication with and from a central server. P2P services have evolved beyond being solely internet-based, yet they are still commonly thought of as such. In fact, not everyone who is in the Bitcoin world knows what peer-to-peer is or how it works in favor to them. Peer-to-peer services encompass a wide range of activities, from basic buying and selling to those associated with the sharing economy. Usually, when a third party is withdrawn from the process, there is a higher risk that the service provider will fail to deliver to the consumer. There may be instances that the service will not be of the level expected, or that the buyer will not pay, or that one or both sides will be able to exploit the asymmetric knowledge. There are a lot of risks that users may encounter when a third party is removed. This listed additional risks add to the transaction cost of a peer-to-peer transaction. P2P services are frequently built with the intent of making these transactions easier and lowering the possible risk for both the customer and the seller. The service may be paid for by the customer, seller, or both, or it may be provided for free and monetized in some other way. P2P networks such as the Bitcoin blockchain are quite inexpensive when it comes to pricey transactions. You don't even have to think about how to pay for it. In comparison to commercial banking, users can transfer any amount they choose with cheaper rates for large payments. Although fees on blockchain networks vary widely and can be costly at times, examples like this are uncommon but not unheard of and demonstrate the feasibility of transferring large quantities using a peer-to-peer protocol. Of course, nothing in this world is free. If you're expecting more from the system, then you obviously need to pay a much pricier rate than most users. Aside from the cost, the paperwork required in major international transactions in commercial banking is famously burdensome, and there are several structural obstacles when remitting money overseas into various assets. With many digital asset rails available internationally, Bitcoin's blockchain relies only on independently verifiable permission of the parties involved. But how sure is the P2P system? What if it falters? Knowing that a huge sum of money relies on it, a dispersed network of computers maintains the peer-to-peer paradigm. This eliminates the need for a server or central administrator because each node acts as both a server and a client by storing a copy of the contents. What better way to keep track of things than a high-tech computer? As a result, each node can either upload or download files for other nodes. Instead of using a central server, these nodes save their data on their own hard drives. P2P networks are quicker and more efficient since each node has the same capabilities for storing, transmitting, and receiving data. A P2P network, unlike traditional designs with a single point of failure, has a distributed topology that makes it highly resistant to cyber attacks. So where does P2P enter in solving the centralization of Bitcoin mining? Mining has been heard of for a long way since the days when you could mine blocks consistently on a laptop CPU by just clicking a button. It was all too simple back then. There wasn't any of these complicated matter, but it was much easier to steal them back then. It was essentially an amateur hobbyist effort at that time, requiring little significant capital investment or skill, but with this hard work comes its fruit of labor. Today, it is seen as a multi-billion-dollar professional sector requiring huge capital expenditure at scale. It's a whole different game. Nobody would have expected things to become this big. A decentralized P2P technique is used to install the so-called P2P cryptocurrency network, which is the communication layer that transfers all the data needed in the cryptocurrency system to facilitate communication between various entities of a coin. The primary purpose of why this is used by various networks is to allow the members of the network to synchronize their views of the system, state, and to distribute peer information to allow peers to reconnect after a disconnection. Multi-user time-sharing computer systems faced a similar issue a generation ago. Clients had to resort to password authentication to safeguard their data before robust encryption, putting their confidence in the system administrator to keep their information hidden. The admin may always override privacy if he made a judgment call balancing the idea of privacy against other issues, or if his superiors demanded it. Then when strong encryption became widely available, users immediately jumped on it as soon as they got a chance to. No matter what the cause, no matter how excellent the explanation, no matter what excuse you could give to try, data could be encrypted in a way that made it physically impossible for anyone to access it except the original user. Bitcoin's only explanation on how this applies to them is to check for double spending via a peer-to-peer network. In a word, the network functions as a distributed timestamp server, marking the initial currency transaction. It makes use of the fact that information is simple to transmit yet difficult to contain. Cryptographic techniques and decentralized approach are used by cryptocurrencies to ensure security and resilience, which are possibly the most critical attributes for money. Decentralization prevents a single point of failure as well as a single trust anchor, yet it may lead to disagreements among stakeholders. Privacy, verification, authentication, currency production, and ownership transfers are among the services that a peer-to-peer currency system is intended to provide, aside from the ones intended before this. A large amount of resources is required to guarantee a stable and tamper-proof system, and this quantity is proportional to the number of coins in the network. By including the coin creation process within the network protocol rather than relying on a central trusted authority, the network is able to compensate users for the resources they provide. This establishes a natural and incorruptible relationship between the network's money supply and demand. Individual miners face significant consequences as a result of centralized mining pools. They serve as a centralized point of selection for transactions to be included in a block. This provides each mining pool operator complete control over which transactions are processed on the blockchain, with no way for the real owners of the mining gear to have a voice except to leave the pool if they disagree with the criteria specified by the operator. Even without the option to swap bitcoins for other currencies, it remains a valuable tool for independent businesses and organizations since it allows them to trade and settle accounts anonymously and independently. It basically offers them a bank with a secure account system that can't be tampered with or operates without the need for a corruptible central authority. As a result, there is no single point of failure in the distributed system. Users own their own crypto keys and transact directly with one another, using the P2P network to prevent double spending. Seeing how big and popular Bitcoin is becoming these days, it's no doubt that it may continue to do so for years and become a widely used worldwide currency, or it could be the complete opposite of it and may become just a passing fad. But in either case, it is a portent of things to come. This is one of the first genuinely decentralized currencies, paving the stage for hundreds of others to compete in the new cyberspace arena in the coming years. But just because it serves as a path for others doesn't automatically mean it will be just as big and successful as Bitcoin. In addition to that, Bitcoin is slowly becoming as one of the important elements in the global society's transition to the post-nation-state economy, which was discussed in the Sovereign Individual. The future is here and it takes the form of Bitcoin. Although it used to be so toxic and polluted for Earth, solutions are paving their way. Make sure you stay connected and we'll see you at the next one.